Hello, super quick intro. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can solve the Hanayama Cyclone puzzle. The 3 or 4 moves that you need to do to disassemble all 4 of those cyclone pieces, and then how you can do the opposite to put it back into its original position. This is a long one, this is a tough one. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so here we have a fully assembled cyclone puzzle. So the first thing we need to do before we start separating this is identify the 2 types of piece that we're going to be dealing with. And these are nicely labelled. First piece that we've got is the cyclone. I'm sure you can see the cyclone engraving here. And the only real sort of difference or differentiating piece about this is the slant in here, that extra slant. And we also have another cyclone piece in here. So the 2 cyclone pieces, one is gold and one of them is silver. And the other type of piece, we've got the Hanayama engraving. And the difference with these 2 pieces is that in here, there's a little bit of a cutout just in there on the inside. And on the opposite side, we have a bigger groove. So this is much harder to find and to see, but you'll see that inside curve actually gets smaller, or the thickness of the actual piece gets smaller up here than it is around the rest of the puzzle. And it's those gaps on the opposite side of the Hanayama pieces that are going to allow us the space to do something first with the 2 cyclone pieces in here. So now we know what we're looking at in terms of pieces. We're now going to try and organize these pieces in a way that we can do the first move. So first of all, we're going to be holding on to the 2 cyclone pieces. So one of which is gold, easy to identify. The other of which either identify through the extra slant in here or the cyclone engraving in here. So we're going to position these 2 pieces with the gold piece on the left as we're holding it, and the silver cyclone on the right. And now we need to get the 2 Hanayama pieces in a specific position, because what we're going to be trying to do with these 2 cyclone pieces is get them opposite each other so that they can get opposite each other and then slide apart in this position here. But to do that, these 2 Hanayama pieces have to be in a specific position. So as we're looking down on it, we've got the 2 cyclone pieces on the left and the right in here. These 2 are the Hanayama pieces. First of all, we need to orientate them in the right position. So first of all, we want the piece that's on the right and slightly above, we want the gap of that facing up. And then we want exactly the opposite with the piece that's slightly on the left and down. So you want to be in this position, essentially. Once we're in this position, we're then going to turn the gold piece into the middle. And actually we've missed a step out. We actually want to be looking at, which we happen to be looking at anyway, but with the cyclone piece on the left, the gold piece, we want the cyclone engraving, because the cyclone engraving is only on one side, we want that engraving side facing towards us. And yeah, so once we've got that gold cyclone piece in the middle, we've got the Hanayama gap, the Hanayama piece that's on the right facing up, or the gap is facing up, and we've got the opposite on the other Hanayama piece. What we're now going to do is we're going to tilt those Hanayama pieces to sort of like a 45-degree angle in here. And no matter what, this next move that you're going to do, you're not going to do it first time, you're not going to do it second time, you're probably not going to do it the 5th time. This is just extremely awkward and not as specific as I'm describing it to be. So what we're going to try and do now is get this piece through this gap and opposite the other gold cyclone piece. And it's all about using the sort of the extra gaps in the Hanayama pieces, but there's no real specific position to do it in. So like I told you that the pieces were opposite, but we've just slid in when this piece was facing down and this piece was at that 45-degree angle. But I've made it look quite easy. It gets easier with practice, but the first time of doing this move, it's going to take you a long time to get. It's going to be awkward, you're going to lose track of certain pieces because you've got to maneuver certain pieces while keeping other pieces still. But eventually you'll get to this position in here, and here we're then going to try and unhook these 2 pieces from each other. However, with the orientation of these 2 Hanayama pieces at the minute, we would have to use an extreme amount of force to do that. It is doable, but it's not the right way to do it, or there's a more efficient way to do it. And all we have to do is flip the 2 Hanayama pieces around. So now The piece that's on the left, which had the gap at the bottom, is now at the top, and we've got the opposite with the Hanayama piece that's now on, or that is, always has been, on the right. And once we've done that, we put the puzzle in a position where the gap of, or the sort of straight line of this Hanayama piece can fit into the gap on the opposite Hanayama piece, and then you've got the exact same on the opposite. And what that does is that creates, when we've got it in the right position, because again this isn't an easy position to find and to get into, but once we've done that, we can then turn these pieces around each other and separate from there. And the gold piece will end up on the bottom as we're looking at it, and the silver cyclone piece will end up on the top. What we're going to do next is we're now going to separate completely the gold cyclone piece. And to do that, we're going to first orientate this Hanayama piece opposite the gold piece. And the awkward part about this is getting this cyclone piece out of the way. So first of all, we're going to turn it so that the big chunky gaps in it are out of the way. And it'll then be easier, but not super easy, to orientate these two pieces into this position so that they are opposite each other there. What we can do as well is get the next Hanayama piece ready so that when we slide, actually no, we can't do that just yet. Well, ignore that. We're now going to separate these two pieces from each other. Again, these two, because it can be quite tight, we need to orientate them in the right positions and essentially just play around with it until we get to here. That turn around the corner is the real key. And then we can separate the last, the gold cyclone from the last Hanayama piece, and we have separated that piece in there. And we're then going to switch our focus to the other cyclone piece, and we're going to bring that over to the left hand side. And we just have to do the same now. Everything gets just a little bit easier from here. So first of all, we need to identify which of these two Hanayama pieces is going to separate first. So for us, it's going to be this piece in here. And then once we've done that, we can then separate the final Hanayama piece from there. And that is the two cyclone pieces disassembled. And then obviously it's nice and simple in here to separate the two Hanayama pieces. And that is how we disassemble the cyclone puzzle. For reassembling the cyclone puzzle, it's all about orientation. So obviously we're going to start with the two Hanayama pieces, and obviously there's two ways that we can do this. We can put it this way around, or we can put it this way around. What we're going to use as the sort of defining things for us are all the engravings. So you've got the two Hanayama engravings here. All the engravings are only on one side, so this makes it nice and easy. On the left hand side, we're going to turn the Hanayama piece so it's more of a vertical position, and the engraving should be facing towards us. The other piece we're going to hold horizontally, and the engraving should be pointing upwards. We're going to slide them in, turn them around, job done with those ones. Then we're going to take the cyclone piece. Again, only one side has the engraving on. We're going to have that engraving in a vertical position facing towards us, and when we're connecting to the two Hanayama pieces, it doesn't matter which way around or which one we connect to first, but as long as both engravings are facing down when we're holding those in a horizontal position. And this is the one where we can sort of prepare for the next move, if you like, or the next connection. So we're going to connect in here, again, cyclone engraving facing us, Hanayama engraving facing down, and then we can go straight onto the same one, which has exactly the same orientation. Cyclone engraving facing us, Hanayama engraving facing down. We can turn that around the corner, and we can let go of the cyclone piece, because we're now going to be connecting the gold cyclone piece to the two Hanayama pieces. And the orientation for these, we're going to have the cyclone engraving again in a vertical position facing us, but this time the two Hanayama pieces are going to be in a horizontal position, but the Hanayama engraving is going to be up facing us. And again, we're going to just make a note of where the other Hanayama piece is so that we can at least attempt to make it a little bit easier to connect the second one after we've done this first one. So again, cyclone engraving facing us, Hanayama engraving facing us as well, and we connect in there. So then we're going to take the second Hanayama piece, and this one is, well, one of the tighter positions to get into. We now need to get it so that the gold cyclone piece becomes opposite the Hanayama piece, when again we have the Cyclone engraving facing us, the Hanayama engraving facing up. And now we're going to get it so that we're in the right position. And this isn't too specific because it's hard to control where that other Cyclone piece is. There we go. So once we got those opposite each other, I used a slight bit of force, things I wasn't in the perfect position. When you're in the perfect position, you don't need much, if any, force at all. So we're going to connect those two pieces in there. We're going to turn around the corner again when the second Cyclone piece is out of the way. And then we're gonna prepare then once we've got these out of the way, we're then gonna prepare for the last couple of moves, which are probably the toughest of the reassembly. First of all, well, importance wise is orientation, and then the second challenge is getting these in the right position for this. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to take the two Cyclone pieces, which are this one and this one for me, and we're going to then orientate the two Hanayama pieces, which at the minute are the wrong way around. So we want the piece that's on the left, we want the gap facing up, and the bit that's the Hanayama piece that's on the right, we want facing down. So we're going to turn those around. And we also want it in this position where the gold Cyclone engraving is facing towards us. And when we're in this position, we also want it below the silver Cyclone. So we're going to just swap those over, which is relatively simple to do. So at the minute, we've got the two Hanayama pieces in the middle. The bit on the left and above slightly has got the gap facing up. The bit on the right and slightly down has got the gap facing down. The gold Cyclone is below the silver Cyclone, and the engraving on the gold Cyclone is facing towards us. That's a lot of different things that you have to factor in when getting that orientation. But now we're going to overlap these two in this position. And it doesn't happen in this position, it needs to be more in the middle. But yeah, it's this position that we're going to be crossing over with. So now, this is one of the tougher moves of the reassembly. Chances are I'm not going to do it first time, but again, we need to be in a position where the Hanayama pieces are using the gaps on each other. So this line fits into the gap of this Hanayama piece, and then the opposite happens, or the same happens on the opposite side. And once we're in the right position, which we're close to, we can then turn the corner and reconnect just like that. And again, that is not an easy move to do, not an easy move to find. You have to be pretty specific with the positioning, and it will take you a long time. You will get better with it with practice, but yeah, it will be probably quite frustrating the first couple of times you try and do this. Once we're in this position, we're going to put them together so that they're overlapping, and then what we need to do is swap these two Hanayama pieces over. So the piece that's on the left, the gap is now going to go to face the bottom, and the piece that's on the right is going to do the opposite. It's going to go up to that top position in there. And once we're in this position, we've then got a final move to do. We can now push the two Cyclone pieces together. And again, we're going to start off with that orientation as we did to disassemble it. Sort of a 45-degree angle with the Hanayama gaps being opposite each other. And from here, this is a little bit easier to do than the opposite when we were disassembling it. But we can then turn that gap around there. And to finish off, we'll get the Cyclone gap out of the middle. And that is how we reassemble the Cyclone puzzle. So there it is, that is how you disassemble and then reassemble the Cyclone puzzle. For disassembling it, the hardest part is the first move. Getting those two Cyclone pieces opposite each other is the hardest thing to do by a mile. And then the sort of exact position you need to be in to then cross those two pieces over. Once you've done those, it gets a little bit easier, but that very first move of getting those two Cyclone pieces opposite each other into this position, or so that they're able to do this, that's the tough bit. For reassembling it, the key is getting the orientation right and the order right of reassembling the four pieces. Reversing the move that was the tough move, the first move for disassembling it, isn't anywhere near as hard when you are reassembling it. And hopefully this has helped you solve the Cyclone puzzle for yourself. If you do come across any issues or have any questions, then comment below and I'll do my best to help you. And thank you very much for being here. If you want to see me struggle through the Cyclone puzzle for the first time, or the solutions to any of these other Hanayama puzzles, then be sure to click my face here to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace!